Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with episode 95 of our Reddit series. This one's going to be a little bit more entitled parents, and I have a feeling you're gonna love this one. A quick thank you for all the love and support on the video I made the other day. I really appreciate it and you guys mean the world to me. If you want to earn another 700 Bumfris points, like the video, and if you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe, then sit back, relax, and get annoyed at some entitled parents. From when I was born, I never knew what my dad looked like. I grew up with my mum in Indonesia until I was about 8 years old. When I was 8 or so, my dad, who was in the US, was able to help get mum and me together by an immigration policy which was brought out by Clinton, I think. Essentially, it said that if you're a US citizen, you can bring your family over. After a long journey, we met up at the airport and that was the first time that I ever saw my dad. I was happy. I saw new sights and it was a new life for our family. Fast forward to a couple of years later, I remember the time where I got a test wrong in class and the teacher ended up assigning me homework for study. I had my dad help me, which was normal. But what made me upset initially was that he got upset all too quickly. He looked over my work and shook his head. Dialogue will not be exact, but this is as close as I can remember. My dad says to me, "That's wrong." And I just say, "How? I thought I did it right." So he tells me to do it again. And with that, he proceeded to erase my answers and had me start over. At that point, I'd already worked an hour on my homework and I was tired. It was a late night and I didn't want to continue. I put the pencil down and told my dad that I was going to sleep, and he wouldn't take any of it. He shoved the pencil in my hand and told me to write. I got angry, just as any 10-year-old could, and said no. I kid you not, he slapped my hand hard. The pencil dropped onto the floor. At that point, I was about to start crying. He then told me to pick up the pencil, which I didn't want to do, and then he yelled at me to pick it up. So I did what he said, and then he slapped the pencil out of my hand again. He then told me to pick it up again, and repeated this maybe 4 or 5 times. Afterwards, he proceeded to tell me how ungrateful I was for not being happy that he wanted to help with my homework and that I should just go to sleep. That night, I went to bed crying. After the incident, I became more and more afraid of Richard, which is not his real name, plus I stopped thinking of him as a dad last year, and this was the start of a downhill father-son relationship. Over the years, he kept belting me over stupid things, and even for no reason at all. One that I remember was when I was 15-ish and I got a C- in my maths class. Math wasn't my strong suit, and my dad said to me, "How come you got a low score in math again?" And I responded saying, "It's not low, it's still passing." My dad was not happy with this and said, "So you're settling? How could you? After everything that I taught you?" And I just say back, "Dad, I'm not being ungrateful. I'm not good at math and I'm happy that I passed. Please just leave me alone about it, okay?" At this point, my dad slaps me across the face and says to me, "I'm calling your teacher. You're failing classes and now you're just being rude. I'm the parent here, not you. Whatever rules I make, you follow. No questions asked. Go to your room." I scream back at him, "Leave me alone. I will call the police. I'm sick of your hard-headed self." This started World War III. He pulled out his belt and chased me around the house just to take his anger out. I may have been aggressive in response, but I have no regrets. He kept belting me like no tomorrow, and there was a couple of times where he turned the belt over and hit me with the buckle side. I didn't know what to do but scream bloody murder, and I kept taking the abuse. He wouldn't stop no matter what, and my mum's justification was, "It's your dad. I can't help you." So now, I have no mum to help, no siblings, at least at the time, and an abusive dad, both physically and mentally. It was the last straw when I was 17. Richard and I kept arguing about being gay. I came out to my mum, but I didn't quite come out to my dad yet, and I'm sure you can guess why. My point was, there's no wrong in being gay, but there's every wrong in you condemning people to hell. He even said to me, "So you're gay. If you are and you come into my house with a boy, I will kill you." I say back to him, "You know what? F you. I'm so sick of you. I'm so sick of your abuse, and I'm sick of you constantly being stubborn. You're not open to listening and you don't care about me at all." He says back to me, "Excuse me? I don't listen? I abuse you? I'm your dad. I'm the head of the house and I get to tell you what is right and what is wrong. You cannot and will not have an opinion under my roof. Until I'm dead, you're always going to be under me." I just respond with, "What are you gonna do? Hit me? Go ahead. Hit me. I dare you." I kept screaming at him and he grabbed the metal broomstick nearby and hit me with the strength of a baseball player. I stumbled, caught myself, screamed some more and punched his gut. We broke out into a full-on fist fight. It took my mum yelling in my face to stop. I had little respect for her, but I had zero respect for Richard. That was it. I wanted to move out, but I had no money. In September of 2017, I met my boyfriend online. We kept chatting and I fell in love pretty darn quick. Christmas of that year, I flew over to see him. My parents were upset because it was the first time that they'd had Christmas without me. So this Christmas was just them and my 3 siblings. Christmas was the best week that I ever had with my boyfriend. I met his family, I saw new sights, and I loved every bonding moment that I had with him. His family was so open to loving me. His mum was a true mum. She kept mumming me and him. And Christmas Eve, I cried. I didn't want him to see, but he did and asked me why I was crying. I told him that I never really had a mum or dad, and I feel safer here. He kept hugging me, and eventually we both fell asleep. Christmas morning, he woke me up and tried to get me out of bed. I said that I wanted to tell him something, but I didn't know how. We both knew what it was, but didn't want to make a move. Eventually, I asked to marry him, and he said yes. All the stores were closed Christmas Day, so we went ring shopping the next day. We ended up having a really long, drawn-out engagement. At the end of my week-long visit, we drove up to his apartment to pack up a few things and rest before driving to the airport. It was a 2-hour drive, and I started to get really emotional, and he kept asking me what was wrong. I kept hiding my face, but he kept asking and turning me towards him. I couldn't hold it in, so I busted out and cried for hours. I told him how safe I felt with him and that I don't want to go back home. I don't want to stay there anymore, and he comforted me and said that it's going to be okay. I'm tearing up while typing this, as this was an important step in my life and in the very long story. We packed up and drove to the airport. He held my hand the entire way and played some of his favorite Ella Fitzgerald songs. At the airport, I kept looking back towards him from the security line. He hugged me tight and said, "Fly away, Jay." It means a lot to me, which is another long story. We kept looking at each other until I couldn't see him anymore. I started crying again. Arriving at my home airport, my coworker picked me up because my dad decided that work was more important than plans I had made weeks beforehand. I came home and my mum just said hi and asked for help with the dishes. She didn't ask me how my trip went, who I saw, or what I did. When Dad came home that night, he didn't talk to me. We never talked for months unless it was a necessity. Over the next few months, I kept saving up money to move out. I also took more of the emotional abuse, the "I am your parent" and the "I know more than you, you're not smart enough." There were even times when he drafted money from my savings, which was a joint account, because I didn't need the money and he needed it more than I do. Fast forward to the end of May, I officially resigned from my job, cried with coworkers and said my goodbyes. I decided to leave when my parents were out on Memorial Day vacation, and I picked up my boyfriend at the airport and we went home and packed. I didn't say goodbye to my parents, but I did say goodbye to my church and close friends. I got tears, hugs, and everything. A couple of days later, we left together. The instant I turned off the main road and onto the freeway, I said in the car, "That's it," and my boyfriend replied, "Yeah, it's a new start." I left behind my family, my beloved rabbit, and most of my emotional ties and baggages. To this day, I'm still struggling with PTSD, emotional distress, heavy depression, and anxiety. I can't look at adults arguing, and I can't get yelled at, and I hate it when people order me around, even if it's unintentional. And every single time I think of my parents, I get really upset. I blocked their numbers and cut off all contact completely. I can't interact with people well, and I can't go to social events. It makes me anxious, but I'm still working on fixing myself, but I'm glad now that I'm not alone. For those of you still wondering, don't worry. I am much better and far better than I ever was a year ago. I had heavy depression and anxiety then, but I rarely feel them now. It's people like you who helped me throughout my journey in life, making it brighter every day. Also, I have chosen not to pursue legal action against Richard, majority being, I still care for my sisters. I don't want my mum to have to raise them and my brother herself. I don't want to be the cause of breaking up my family. Sadly, I'll leave that role to Richard, if it ever goes there. As much as I'd love to see him in jail, he's still a father to 3 other kids. My friends who came from single parent homes constantly tell me of how they wish they had a mum or a dad. I don't want my siblings to experience the same thing as they did. I did, however, tell my sisters that if things go too bad, go and get help. Don't let the name of parents get to you. Prior to making this video, I actually had plans to not have any kind of commentary after reading these posts out, but after reading this post, my opinion on doing that has completely changed. This story, more than probably most of the stories that I've ever read out in this Entitled Parents series, and by the way, this is the 50th episode, so we've read a lot of these out, and this one literally made me sad while reading it. I don't know, we see a lot of stories from, the perspectives of random people, but we don't get a lot of stories where their parent is the one who's entitled. I don't know if it's because people are scared of, the potential ramifications of telling a story about their own parents, but what I do know from these types of stories is there's a side of these entitled parents that we don't see. And that's the side being that they actually have kids, and these kids have to put up with this kind of thing every day. Not sure what else to say. I don't want to harp on too much, but it just, makes me really sad. What can I say? So when I was a toddler, my mum and sperm donor got divorced, and my mum, me and S moved to the suburbs of a major city that was not very good for two toddlers. But it was all that my mum could afford and still have a roof over our heads. So our neighbour, entitled babysitter, was our babysitter for the most part. One day, me and Swerve were playing in Entitled Kid's room with Entitled Kid and Entitled Sister. We made a real mess of the place, as kids do. The entitled babysitter comes in and tells me and S to clean it, but Entitled Kid and Entitled Sister don't have to. When I complain about it, as kids do, the entitled babysitter gets all pissy at me. She then proceeds to threaten to call the police on me, a toddler. She threatened to call the cops on a toddler. When I still refused, she put us all in the car and drove us to the police station. She told the police receptionist that she wanted to speak to an officer, and the police receptionist told her that no officers were available at the station, but she'd send one out to her house. So we all go back to the entitled babysitter's house, and I'm scared out of my little mind. Eventually the police officer shows up, and I hide behind the doorway to Entitled Kid's room and peek out the corner. The police officer was giving the entitled babysitter a very stern talking to about how he can't arrest a toddler for not cleaning someone else's room. Like, he was annoyed at the fact that he actually had to do that. He then leaves, and my sister and I tell my mum about it after she gets home from one of her jobs. Eventually we moved away with my now real dad and are living a comfortable life, but people like these remind me that some folks are just effing crazy. This has to be one of the weirdest entitled parent stories I've ever heard in my life. Like, I don't even know where to start with this, so I'm just not going to bother starting at all and say, what the hell happened in this story? Like, firstly, clearly you're not equipped to be a babysitter if you can't deal with a toddler telling you that they're not going to clean up a room. And secondly, what the hell makes you think that you're able to call the police on a toddler over something as petty as cleaning a room? Like, where do you get off, honestly? Some of these people don't even fit the entitled mold, honestly. They're just stupid, and God, I hope they don't breed. That's all I've got to say. My daughter's friend from school came home with her one day. They were doing girly stuff that any normal 14-year-old girls do, like makeup, nails, etc. I hear a blood-curdling scream and run upstairs expecting the worst. I open the bathroom door and the girl is on the toilet with blood on her toilet paper. I was like, okay, she started her period. Nothing too crazy. My daughter and I sit her down and I explain why we have periods and what that means for her from now on. We hug her and congratulate her on the next step in her life. Afterwards, we go and get her supplies from the store and grab ice cream. She is all calmed down and feeling pretty special at this point. I took her home and thought it was kind of strange that her parents never mentioned anything to get about any of this. She was 14 after all. About an hour later, I receive a call from her livid mother who berates me for having the audacity to tell her daughter about those private things and that she will learn things on her own just like she, the mum, had to. I was completely stunned. She had no intention of explaining anything to her daughter. She then said that the girls couldn't be friends anymore. Her daughter would still come over without the parents knowing, and she still calls me to this day, which is 6 years later, just for guidance in her life. I think this just kind of reinforces the point that I made in the last story. Like, these people are just so stupid. Like, how can you think that your kid will get through life if you don't help them? Like, what are parents for? Aren't they there to try and guide their kids and help them get through life and, do the right thing by them? I guess my perception of what a parent's supposed to do is completely skewed. So you're obviously supposed to treat your kids like crap and not teach them anything, because that's what it seems like from some of these parents, honestly. Alright everyone, that is that for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm just going to take a second to plug a couple of my social medias, including our Discord server. I do have a Twitter and an Instagram if you want to follow me on both of those. They are both at Bumfris, and feel free to send me a message and I'll do my best to respond. I also just want to take a second to say thank you so much for all the love lately, all of the comments, the likes, the subscribers, just the fact that you guys tune in and watch my videos every day. It really does make my day. Every single one of you is the backbone of this channel, and I really cannot express how much I appreciate that. Without you guys, this channel would be nothing, and I love making these videos for you guys, and I love the fact that you enjoy them. So on that note, I will wrap things up for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to take a second again to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Entitled Parents. Bye.